Kim, we just went live. Sorry. I think you were looking down and the notification came across. It's my fault.
No worries. Are we live now?
I'm doing back in, guys. I'm filling in for Colin. This is Dana here, and I'm a little rusty, so this is totally my fault.
Oh, it's fine, Dana. This is a team effort. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of Status Coup News. I'm your host, Kim Brown. Zeta Day in the background, pushing the buttons for us today. Listen, we've got a great show in store. As you see from the headline, there is no end, seemingly, to the stream of police violence in the United States as 29-year-old Tyre Nichols is laid to rest today in Memphis. Police are still out here killing people. Have you guys heard about the story of the disabled double amputee man named Anthony Lowe in Huntington Beach, California, who was shot and killed while trying to escape police who I can't even say what the cops were doing, because whatever the cops say they were doing, they lied about whatever it is that they were doing. When we get to the point where police are not only killing unarmed people, but they're killing kids and killing disabled people, what is actually the point of the police? Whom are the police protecting and serving? Oh, I'm sorry, the interests of the elites. Yes, you have that 100% right. They are not here protecting and serving the interests of the public. We're going to get an update about one of the latest, most egregious police murders. And here we are on February 1st of 2023. It's pretty much an endless stream of madness. But one of the first places I wanted to go, first of all, what's up, everybody? Welcome. Come on in here. Give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to Status Coup News, please take the time to do so and become a member and support the channel. Actually, do even better than that. Head on over to the Status Coup Substack and become an active subscriber there. As you all see from watching the latest mainstream coverage of pick a topic, international news, domestic news, labor news, news involving state violence, the mainstream channels just don't, they just refuse. I won't say they don't have the ability. Oh no, they have the ability. They make a willful decision to cover the news from the perspective of the ruling class, okay? And make sure that the rest of you poors and darkies stay in line. And some of y'all might be poors and darkies, like myself. But that is the whole point of the mainstream media, to keep people in their place and to make sure that you don't think that there's a better way. But the first story that I want us to go to is actually something that is receiving a media blackout in the United States. Today began day one of a 4-day strike amongst a coalition of trade unions happening in the United Kingdom. The pictures that are coming from the UK today are stunning, as an estimated 500,000 people took to the streets everywhere from London to Glasgow to Edinburgh. they were up and down the United Kingdom coast in cities big and small. Taking to the streets is a coalition again of teachers unions, of rail and transport workers, of NHS workers, of even Border Patrol, I believe, was in the mix there. Why are all these hundreds of thousands of Brits in the streets? Well, they are protesting the exorbitant cost of living. They are protesting the ridiculous price of food, of housing. And for the public sector workers, they are protesting a lack of pay raises, substantial pay raises that meets or exceeds the cost of inflation. Everywhere is down bad. The whole economy, global economy, is down bad. I wonder what started that. Maybe a war in Ukraine? Maybe. Oh, anyway, it could be a variety of reasons of things that started. But let's take a picture, Zaina. Let's get that overhead of the estimated 500,000 people that took to the streets today in London, again, protesting the cost of living and the lack of subsequent and adequate pay raises. And in fact, I want us to hear a little bit of a union chant from some of the teachers who were out there in the streets. By the way, when the UK goes out in the streets to protest for labor actions, like France, they do not fuck around. They shut down schools. They shut down the rail stations. The shit was shut down. Not like whatever the fuck we do here in America. This little on occasion, things will be inconvenienced. But no, Europe, they do it a whole different way. So I want us to hear a chant of solidarity from some of the teachers that were amongst the crowds there today. All right. All right. Well, that was a nice little ditty. Our union makes us strong. And I want you guys to understand, okay, the ways in which trade unions play a role in British society is completely different from the role that unions play in the United States. People in the UK, this is a many generational long working class struggle that dates back 100 plus years, probably close to 150 or so years, that the unions have played a role, an active role in the life of most working class Britons. And they view it as their civic duty to participate and engage in union actions, to stand up to the bosses in order to make sure that their labor is fairly compensated. And I want us to hear from the president, the general secretary of the union representing the railroad workers, the mariners, and the train workers union, the railroad workers union. This gentleman is named Mick Lynch. And I want you guys to hear what Mick has to say, because there was a lot of criticism coming from the conservative Tories regarding today's union action. They were calling it extremist. They were saying it's such an inconvenience to the other working people of the United Kingdom. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about this anti-strike law that British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has proposed that is outrageous, but it doesn't sound so off-brand from what Democrats and Republicans here think that American working people should do. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But I want us to hear from the RMT Union General Secretary Mick Lynch when asked about the criticisms about his members and the hundreds of thousands of other working class Britons who were out in the streets leading this national strike today. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I think they're calling these people extremists, left-wing militants and all the rest of it. These are the people that educate our children, that we entrust to nurture our youngsters, and it's an insult for the government to be saying that. These people are desperate for a pay rise. Many of them are young people that have studied hard to get where they are, and they need a reward. They can't get decent housing. They're suffering from the cost of living crisis, as are millions of other people in our country. And from a government minister and a set of Tories that are just indulged in corruption and incompetence, it's an insult to working people. And the best thing that the Tories could do at this time for this country is to get out of the way and call a general election so we can get some competent people in to try and help us solve some of our problems.
Wise words spoken there by Unionist General Secretary there, Mick Lynch. And, it's amazing because you hear, the response to what Mick was giving that answer. We heard so much demonization of teachers. Don't you guys remember during the pandemic, during the half-assed lockdowns that we did here in the US, when teachers were saying, hey, we need better ventilation in the schools. We need better testing in the schools. We need better mitigation tools to help stem the spread of this deadly airborne virus. Teachers were vilified in this country, told that they were greedy, told that they wanted to stifle the growth and development and the learning of American youth when the teachers were actually just in there trying to preserve their own lives and their own health as well that they should. Nobody should go to work and be willing to lay down their life because we live in an idiotic place. Absolutely no. So to hear that Mick Lynch's response to the criticism that his members and others that are out there striking or receiving, it just is just a unpleasant reminder rather, that there's always going to be class attacks on the working poor and working class people. And sometimes those class attacks will come from within other members of that class, but it's usually coming from the elites, coming from the upper class folks, using the media as a mouthpiece to criticize the actions of working people who are simply trying to survive under capitalism, right? There's no reason why the UK cannot pay the NHS workers, their teachers, their railroad workers, their transport workers, everything that they are asking for and more. You know why? Because I know the Metropolitan Police in the United Kingdom are funded to the fucking hilt. So there's no reason why you can't fund the nurses and the teachers and the railroad workers, etc. But that's exactly what Rishi Sunak, the unelected prime minister, conservative prime minister of the UK wants. Zaina, let's pop up that piece, that Guardian piece, because another reason why the working class folks are so pissed off, by the way, today was day one of a 4-day action. So please be monitoring via social media these strikes, these protests, and these marches happening in the UK, because guess where you won't see them? You're not going to see them covered on your local network news. I'm wondering if CNN and MSNBC, have they bothered? I know they have bureaus over there and reporters and anchors. Have they bothered to give an update? But I'm asking honestly, because I would not know, because I don't watch them shits. do not watch that shit. But I want us to look at this Guardian piece, because Rishi Sunak, again, the ways in which fascism is continuing to creep into the West, and many would argue that it's been here for quite some time. I am one of those many that would argue that fascism is not new here, but we are seeing it raise its head and become increasingly obvious. So what the Rishi Sunak administration, what the Rishi Sunak government has proposed is what many are calling an anti-strike bill, okay, where strikers, especially workers in public sectors like NHS, like teachers, would be precluded from withdrawing their labor. They would be precluded in doing actions exactly like the ones that we're seeing happening across the pond today, and would be forced into something called minimum service levels, basically kneecapping the ability for workers, public sector workers and others, to withdraw their labor as a response to the harsh working conditions that they are subjected to. Now, Britons are extremely pissed off about this, as well they should be, because the right to strike is pretty much the biggest piece of leverage that working Britons have in their arsenal. Yes, and striking is something that this country, not this one that that I'm in, but the one we're talking about, that has always been a tool of the proletariat to be able to go out and say that no, actually, we're going to withhold our labor. Rishi Sunak, again, who nobody voted for, who got no popular election votes, none, wants to take away the rights for people to strike. And not only that, in this proposed government bill, not only would people be forced to comply to a minimum level of service, ergo not be able to strike at all, government workers, or pardon me, these trade unions could be sued by the government, by the bosses. People who are engaging in strike actions could be fired. And the Britons think that this is an attack on their democracy. Isn't that cute? They think they have democracy like us. we think we have democracy too. No, we do not. We do not have democracy, because anytime you have people who have not won elections when they get into power, try to strip and deny power to average citizens and people, the basic human rights to people. A democracy is something you do not have. I wouldn't call it a democracy. I'd call it creeping fascism. What's that you say? Oh, it's sort of like when the Supreme Court voted to overturn women's bodily autonomy rights and to deny people access to abortion care. Somebody completely unelected to office all of a sudden has withdrawn rights from people. Yes. You can see how the UK and the United States are very closely related and aligned. The democracy is a farce. We don't have it here. They don't have it there. And I think slowly but surely, each of us, the working class folks on either side of the pond, are starting to eventually come to that very sad reality. Be watching this anti-strike law, because I think it's going to be what helps to catapult most people, not only against the Tories, which I don't think is a very hard sell, but you're going to see it be laid very clear as to who supports this anti-strike bill and the kinds of pushback that it gets. But I think that this sort of suggestion that really strikes at the heart of most working class folks over in the UK who take the right to strike and to unionize extremely seriously, and they see these attacks on their ability to organize and to withhold their labor as personal affronts. You know, it would be really nice if Americans, if we had that sort of collective mentality. But the problem is that we have been browbeaten out of unionizing and organizing for many decades. I mean, I think the union movement maybe was at its height 50, 75, 100 years ago. There was a recent report that showed that American membership in unions is at one of its lowest levels ever, despite all of the wonderful organizing and mobilization efforts that we saw come out of 2022 and 2021, with Amazon workers unionizing, Starbucks workers unionizing, and other places getting it together. We are still very much at record low union membership in America. And that's on purpose. That's intentional. That is to make sure that the workers believe that they don't have any rights, when in fact it is us workers who have all the power. Jeff Bezos may have billions at his fingertips, but I assure you, if every Amazon worker, driver, warehouse person refused to show up to work tomorrow, Jeff Bezos wouldn't have jack shit. So let's keep that in mind. And let's keep this energy, this momentum going with people out in the streets. Again, America, I wish this could be us. I wish this could be us. I wish this, why ain't this us? Let's take a look at what's happening in France. Again, another huge story under media blackout in the United States. Not going to hear very much about it because they don't want y'all motherfuckers getting no ideas, okay? They do not want you getting no ideas. They do not want you, especially non-black people, okay? It's not unusual to see black people in the streets in America. It is a tad bit unusual. We don't really have an anti-war movement in this country anymore. And again, I'm thinking back to the protests, the not in my name, the no answer, all them protests against the Iraq and wars in Afghanistan. I was out there at a lot of them in DC. I saw lots of white kids out there. We don't see the white kids taken to the streets like they used to. Oh, I'm sorry, the March for Life. Sorry. The March for Life. It was a lot of whites out there marching, but they was on the wrong side of shit. So we need the whites on the right side of shit to get back in the fucking streets. But I want us to take a look, y'all. This is how it was going down in France. And to be clear, this is a BBC package. I understand what the BBC is, what the BBC represents, who's the BBC is. I get it. But whom was interviewed in this package to me was quite striking. As you guys know, for a number of 2 weeks now, how long have they been in the streets in France? Some time. They're pissed off not only about cost of living, inflation, cost of housing, etc., but they're really mad at Macron, President Emmanuel Macron, the liberal leader in France, big time pissed at him because he wants to raise the age of retirement, I believe from 62 to 65. And you know, them French don't like to work. The French do not like to work. And I'm with the French when it comes to that. I too do not like to work. And the sooner we can get to retirement age, the better. But you better not go raising that retirement age on people when they are on the precipice of retirement, because you're going to see a bunch of middle-aged and elderly folks take to the streets. And that is exactly what is happening in France right now. So let's take a quick look at this BBC package so we can be better informed, because you're not going to see this shit on CNN. Let's take a look.
Frustration flooded many streets across France. Growing opposition to the prospect of being made to work longer before retiring. Engineer Christophe and urban planner Claire say these pension plans have infuriated them.
I was very moderate until today, and now this is outrageous. They are taking us for fools. I'm really angry. It's enough.
And will you keep on protesting week after week if you have to?
Until they remove this, I will be in the street.
The French government says people should work until they're 64, up from the current minimum of 62. The reason? To keep the country's pension system going when people are living longer.
Pension reform was at the heart of President Macron's manifesto when he was re-elected last year. But the latest opinion polls suggest as much as 2/3 of the French people are against this plan, which comes at a time, of course, when workers across Europe are facing rising bills, rising costs, and taking their own action.
The strikes meant only a quarter of train services operated across the country, and teachers, postal staff, and oil refinery workers were among those who walked out. The French government insists its planned rise in the minimum retirement age is non-negotiable. The unions say they won't back down, so we can expect more protests in the weeks to come. As the Paris march was drawing to a close, there were a few brief clashes between some militant protesters and the police. The tear gas soon cleared, but the widespread national anger against these reforms is going nowhere. Nick Beak, BBC News, Paris.
My guy said, I am very angry. I am so mad. I will be out in the streets. Out in the streets? Oui, the streets. I said, okay, out in the streets. Let's get it. You guys, how come that can't be us? How come Americans don't get as pissed off about the denial of basic human rights, you know, like your ability to retire and not have to work as a greeter at the Walmart until you're an octogenarian? Like, our country is so very slanted, and we really have been brainwashed and mind fucked in the most amazing ways. I'll give you guys a quick example. So you guys probably saw this story floating around local news or even on the interwebs or whatever. But there was an elderly veteran who worked, I believe, as a greeter at Walmart in this region somewhere. Maybe it was Western Maryland. I can't fucking remember. West Virginia, Ohio, somewhere, Appalachia area. And he just happened to come across a benevolent customer who felt bad for him that this old man had to continue to work, show up at Walmart for minimum wage. So he decided to create a GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe raised $130,000, and the elderly veteran was able to retire, and they were so grateful. And the local media framed it as such a feel-good story. Oh, look at what people have come together and done. It's never critiqued from the lens or from the perspective of why is it that we have 80-year-old people in this country and that there is no social safety net for our elderly, for our veterans, for our disabled, and for every quote unquote entitlement. I hate when Republicans use it and frame it as that way. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, you are entitled to housing. Yeah, you are entitled to food. Yes, you should be entitled to healthcare. Your children should be entitled to a quality education. You should be entitled to live in safety. Like, these aren't fucking entitlements. These are basic human rights. And it's always framed to us as something that, oh, that's a bonus. Oh, that's an extra. You don't actually deserve that. You deserve that if you work hard enough, if you put in enough. Oh, it's like, If that's the case, then you need to make abortions available at the goddamn gas station. Okay. If all that shit is not guaranteed to humans upon entering the planet, then people need options to make alternative choices. But I digress. But looking at the energy there in France across the socio and economic sectors there, you have people from all, and everyone's out there for different reasons, obviously, but it's for the same collective achievement of making sure that people have what they need as they get into old age. And same with the Britons. They're trying to make sure that they can afford the cost of living. By the way, the amount of a pay raise that has been suggested to the teachers specifically in the UK is a cost of living increase of 5%, a pay raise of 5%. Well, when fucking inflation is at 15%, the teachers rejected that and said, actually, that's sort of like a pay cut. If you're only going to offer us 5%, and inflation and the cost of living is triple that, then what are you really doing here? Rishi Sunak, the prime minister, unelected prime minister, trying to take away people's right to strike, is unbelievable. But what we're seeing there is the solution. The unions are organized, and the unions in France are going extra hard. They have even threatened specifically to cut the electricity to the members of parliament and to the billionaires. The power workers, the oil refinery workers, they have made specific threats to cut electricity for those powerful people. I love that. I love that. And you know what would happen if workers here tried to make specific threats to elected officials and or the most powerful? They would have the police showing up, swatting their homes of their union leaders and the leaders of organizations. They would be targeted by the state. Okay. We don't live in a democracy here. They might have a tiny bit of democracy over in Europe, but let's be clear, it does not exist here. Okay. Workers have no rights. In fact, it was Joe Biden who bragged about denying our railroad workers the ability to strike when they only wanted 7 days of paid time off sick leave. Joe Biden said, nah. Nope. That's a bridge too far. 7 whole days, 7 entire days. Oh, these railroad workers, they're trying to crash the economy by asking for a week's worth of paid time off. Isn't that right, Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett said, don't do that shit, Joe. Joe said, okay. Okay, enough said. Say less, Warren. Strike averted. There will be no strike. Pay attention, everybody. I would love to see us finally get to the point of organization and fed upness where Americans are understanding that all the talks of cuts to Social Security and the denial now of COVID access to treatments for COVID for the uninsured, which the Biden administration just cut. So if you don't have insurance and, for example, say you want to get vaccinated or if you want to get tested, these are now going to be out-of-pocket costs. That's what it is. They ceased the public health emergency portion of the COVID stuff from the federal perspective. So we don't have access to health care here. We actually do not have any workers' protections here. We don't have safe schools. We live in a place where our public school system, the history of the country, is being attacked. Specific people in our society are being targeted by legislation, anti-trans laws, anti-LGBTQ laws that are going forward in a lot of these conservative-led legislatures. Guys, the fascism is here. Now, what are we going to do about it? Okay. We have to do more than just wring our hands. And when people are victims of police violence, say, wow, that's too bad. I don't know. I guess we need reforms. No, fuck reforms. We need a whole new system. The system is only serving and working for the very privileged few at the top. They're not even working for regular whites. Okay. The regular whites are even out here struggling. Okay. We already know that black and brown people have been out here struggling mightily for a long time. And that is a condition that needs to change, but we're kind of accustomed to it. So there's that. But when you see the regular whites struggling, showing up at the food banks, nigga, you've got some troubles. You've got some troubles. And it's time for the regular whites to get activated, the moderate whites to get activated, because that's the majority truly in this country, right? I know is more Hispanics and more blacks and, non-whites put together. But when it comes to the working class, I think that if you awake the sleeping giant that is most white moderates, shit would change in this country. But the thing is, those folks, I believe, are afraid of losing whatever power and status that they think that they might have, which, by the way, their bosses should remind them that they have very little, but they do have more than working class non-whites, which is something. So I guess something is better than nothing. So you might as well keep quiet and hope that they don't notice you. But that's not how this works at all, right? Okay. Before we move on to the next thing, there's people sending money. Thank you. Hold on. Let me get my scroll on. Thank you guys so much for checking out Status Coup here on Status Coup News. Big up to the Status Coup community. I love to see it. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you, baby girl. Christina said that the French and the Brits protesting already have the free healthcare and 8 weeks off. Right. Hello, Christina. Right. Right. That's an excellent point. But they know enough not to give in. That is correct. And not to give in to the government. That is absolutely correct. And that's another thing. Oh my gosh, if Americans actually had 8 weeks of paid time off, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. If we had free healthcare, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. I saw a piece in recent weeks that indicated that a not insignificant percentage of Americans, I apologize, I'm kind of blanking on the exact number. Maybe it's 40%, somewhere in there, in that neighborhood. But about 40% of Americans won't go to the doctor because they fear a high medical bill. And I have to say, even though I wasn't included in that survey, I fall into that category. I don't want to go to the fucking doctor. What if they find something that costs me $100,000 to get treated, right? And then I have to spend my remaining years trying to accumulate $100,000 just to repay a bill. They kept me alive long enough so I could repay this bill that I owe. I hate it here so bad. If somebody could please, I haven't made a plea for a foreign husband in quite some time. I'm not going to do it here because Jordan's channel is too large and somebody actually might take me up on it. So I'm going to do those pleas on my channel where it's small and nobody watches. But thank you all so much for your super chat support. Thank you, Christina. We appreciate that. Please hit like on the video, subscribe, become a member to Status Coup here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to the Status Coup Substack, where you can get access to some exclusive content and all of those great things. So as we talk about creeping fascism over in Europe, they're used to that, but we're used to it here too. We've had fascism for quite a while. We just like to call it democracy. There's that. But make no mistake, here in the United States, state violence continues to go onward unabated. As people gathered today, Wednesday, in Memphis to lay Tyre Nichols to rest, the conversations surrounding what to do about police continue to percolate, but sometimes they don't exactly percolate in the right direction. Eulogizing Tyre today was Reverend Al Sharpton. I actually wanted to see what Al Sharpton had to say. I generally don't agree with a lot of things that Al Sharpton says or does because he, to me, is a reliable liberal who has some radical roots in his past. But I think, he has been placated enough by corporate interests and corporate media that he is still going to be very much in the camp of we need to work with the police in our community. We need reforms. What can we do about reforms? Fuck your reforms. You cannot reform a system this entrenched and this committed to white supremacy and to violence by any means necessary. There's no reforming it. It's a wrap. But I do want us to hear, before we get into some of the stories surrounding recent news about police violence, and again, the story coming out of California is especially disturbing. All of them are disturbing, but each one more depraved than the last. Let's hear for a moment from people directly on the ground from Memphis. John from Status Coup was down in Memphis covering the protests surrounding Tyre Nichols' death, which came at the hands of Memphis police officers, 5 of whom have already been fired and charged. A couple of more have been fired. The white ones, we found out about them later. we found out about the white cops a little later than we did the black cops. It's funny how that works. Even though this was an incident in which a black victim, was beaten by black police majority, but there was a white cop involved, and they decided to keep the white cop out of it for a couple weeks. They said, let's let Tommy chill out. Let's let Tommy get his shit together. I don't know if his name is Tommy or not, but regardless, they said, let's let him get his shit together before we put his name and picture out there. But the rest of these black officers were going to plaster their names and faces across national news for a number of days. But anyway, I want us to hear from some of the voices on the ground there in Memphis. This is some exclusive content gathered by Status Coup News. Let's take a look.
I think at this point that we need reforms. We do need reforms now, but the whole system of policing came from slave catchers. The whole system of policing came from strike breakers, and what we need now is control of our own communities, our own working class communities, and what we need now is a whole overhaul of the policing system. That's what we need in this country, is an overhaul of the policing system, a radical redistribution of wealth that Dr. King was talking about.
We had already been in city council talking about the dangers of racism, the dangers of pretext, and the dangers of violence in police traffic stops. A month later, Tyre Nichols' life was taken. But we know that other people's lives have been taken due to police traffic stops. We know that Martavius Banks was almost killed during a police traffic stop.
Yep.
We know that Darius Stewart was killed during a police traffic stop. Nationally, we know that Philando Castile was killed during a police traffic stop. And so what we want people to understand is that these stops are extremely dangerous. The data that we presented showed that there is a disparity in how police conduct traffic stops. So the number of traffic stops already there, we show that people of color are pulled over more. The disparity grows when we talk about which stops make it to court. And the disparity grows again when we realize how many stops get convicted. One thing that's interesting is that officer dismissal requests are only white women. So that's very interesting in a city that is nearly 70% black. And so one thing that we want to talk about is the fact that we do not need police to be helping us keep our traffic safe. That is not necessary. Police are not making the traffic situation safer. They're putting us in danger. They are killing us. They are beating us. Many of these beatings are not tracked because the officers don't. They'll pull over a person, beat them, and not issue a citation. And when a person goes to try to make a report, it's almost as if that event never happened.
That's right.
Right? And they cover these things up. Right. And so this extreme lack of transparency that happens during police traffic stops, the not publishing of data, the not tracking of data, that needs to end now.
I agree with all of that. I mean, that should give you an indication. And I said this on my show lots of times, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Just look at the amount of data that continues to go intentionally ungathered when it comes to police stops, police murders, people that die within police custody, and people that die while incarcerated, either at the local county jail or at the penitentiary. America intentionally does not want this numbers known or published or circulated, because I'm certain the numbers, if we knew the true numbers, it would be horrifying to know that in 2022 police murdered over 1,000 people. Okay. And I mean, what does that break down to? Like 3 people a day? And some would argue, hey, well, in a country this big, in a country this violent, where you have this many guns, maybe that's not so unusual that the police murder 3 people a day. Well, it far exceeds any other country in the world. Okay. No other state apparatus murders as many people as the United States police apparatus. That's not even getting to how many people the United States military murders annually. Those numbers would, well, I don't know if they would shock and horrify Americans. Americans, we can take mass death probably better than most. But getting back to what some of the protesters there, when it comes to this recent death of Tyre Nichols, and you heard the list of names that you've probably never heard, names that I've never heard, guys. That this is how frequent of an occurrence this is. That so many people get killed by the police every single year. We know very little about how these deaths occurred, what the true nature and the true conditions surrounding when people are killed by the police, because the police are not forthcoming with this information, and that is intentional. So when I'm listening to some of the rhetoric coming, and even from one of the protesters there saying we need reforms, but you heard him also say we need community control. Well, that to me is a complete reimagining of police. We currently do not have community control of the police now. And if we did truly have community control, then that would be a completely different entity than the one that we see now, that is based on slave patrols and the militias that were born out of legislation passed by this government, like the Fugitive Slave Act, right? It was legal for whites to ante up and become a posse and go hunt Negroes. Okay. The pretextual traffic stops that the protesters spoke about, to me, that is huge. Fugitive Slave Act vibrations. Papers, please. You know what I'm saying? In America, Black folks especially, you have to, and brown folks, you have to show your papers, please, to give your sense of personhood some sort of validity, to justify you being a human. If you don't have your identity, then I guess they can do whatever they want to you, which is a terrifying, horrifying thought to think about there. But we do want to send our ongoing condolences and heartfelt sympathies to not only the family of Tyre Nichols, but to the families of all that have been stolen by the state. Names that we know, names that we don't know, people that were not only murdered by the state, but those who survived and still live with those traumas in the form of physical disabilities and in the form of psychological trauma, emotional terror that they've had to endure. It goes beyond when police simply kill somebody, because they are in fact terrorizing entire communities. And one of those stories that we have been covering here on Status Coup that I did want to give you an update about, Zaina, let's get that CBS News piece up at your convenience, my dear, because we've been covering the Cop City actions, the Stop Cop City protests in Atlanta that have been going on for well over a year, but recently received national attention after Georgia police entered the forest and assassinated one of the forest defenders, Manuel Tehran, also known as Tortuguita. Shot and killed over 2 weeks now. And this is how you know they assassinated Tortuguita, and how you know it was some bullshit, because have you heard anything else coming from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the Georgia State Police Department? Has anybody said any fucking thing? Has any autopsy reports been released? Do we know how many times this young person was shot? Do we know? Because I am inclined to disbelieve every account put forth by the police. But if Tortuguita allegedly had a gun and fired a shot at police, as police allege, where's the gun? What kind of gun was it? What'd they find? A police officer, as part of that raid, was allegedly shot. I am inclined to believe, in my opinion, that the dumbass police probably shot they fucking selves, because that's just what the police do. You think you got an elite squad of highly trained marksmen and women. These dumb motherfuckers shoot themselves all the goddamn time. And it would not shock me if the cop that was shot on the forest defenders raid, when they raided the forest defenders encampment, it wouldn't shock me if the police shot themselves. But I digress. So here we go. So this came out. This is actually today's news, February 1st. Lord have mercy. Despite Cop City protests, Atlanta moves forward with the Cop City plan. Yep. So the mayor, the black mayor, Andre Dickens, made the announcement today that the Cop City project is going to move forward. He submitted a memorandum of understanding with the DeKalb County CEO and pledged that the $90 million Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, better known as Cop City, is going to move forward. This should give you guys a perfect example of what the state's intentions are. And again, how if you thought you lived in a democracy, no. No. Here's how you know you don't live in a democracy. First of all, Cop City was not an initiative that any politician ran on. Like, oh, I'm going to build Cop City, vote for me. Nope, nobody ran on that shit. Nobody on the city council, even the current mayor. It was not an issue that they ran on. People did not vote for Andre Dickens to become mayor because he was such a staunch supporter of Cop City. In fact, organizers and organizations worked very hard for several sustained months, showing up at city council meetings, giving public commentary, letting it be known in the community, making the community members and residents aware about what Cop City was. And the more information that got out there, the more people in Atlanta decided that this was not something that they wanted. But it does not matter because the forces at play here, including corporate forces, I believe Coca-Cola, Cox Enterprises, there's a number of corporate sponsors behind this Atlanta Police Foundation, which is the driving force behind getting Cop City built. And let's be clear here, as echoed by my Black Power Media comrade and founder of the Community Movement Builders in Atlanta, Kamau Franklin, the people that is, made it clear that this was not something that they want. Cop City was not something that they wanted. In fact, Cop City was a gift in response to the uprisings and the protests of 2020 in the aftermath of the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. This was a gift from the Atlanta Police Foundation, rubber stamped by the elected Black-led Democratic leadership. The mayor and the city council all rubber stamped this to make the police feel better because the morale was so low. Everybody was shitting on the cops so bad in public. They said, don't worry, cops, we're going to destroy 350 acres worth of forest and spend almost $100 million on this training facility so you guys will feel better. So you'll have state-of-the-art facilities that you can train how to shoot and gas these Black folks and these non-whites and these poors. So when they get upset about their living conditions and why their neighborhood is now flooded and underwater because, you know, we got rid of the forest, you guys will have a nice, new, shiny place that you can practice shooting these people down. And that's all Cop City is. And let's be clear, this is not a Democrat or Republican kind of issue, because after Tortuguita was assassinated and people took to the streets, Tina was in the streets covering that in those protests down in Atlanta for Status Coup. You saw the Republican governor, Brian Kemp, stand shoulder to shoulder with Andre Dickens' fucking goofy ass and the rest of them Negroes on the Atlanta City Council. That's why I know we don't have no political friends on the left, none that are in elected spaces, because they will squad up in a minute with the conservative fascists against us and against our interests. And Andre Dickens has said that this project is moving forward. So I certainly expect that this announcement, number one, was not a coincidence in the wake of the assassination of Tortuguita and the charging and arresting of roughly close to a dozen or so activists, forest defenders who were charged with domestic terrorism. Those charges were intentional. That was meant to have a chilling effect on this movement. Okay, when they hit people with domestic terrorism charges, the same shit they was trying to, charge motherfuckers who was it Al Qaeda and shit. I'm sorry, you think the forest defenders are Al Qaeda? Is that what you think? You think people sitting in trees are the same as those planning the 9/11 attacks? I'm telling you, this American injustice system, criminal injustice system, is a fucking joke. It is a joke, an entire joke. And the reason why those people were treated so harshly was to send a message to everybody else. You better stand down and let these cop projects move forward, because the state is aware, the empire is aware that it is crumbling, and it knows that it's going to need a very militarized and heavy-handed response when the people take to the streets in earnest. Okay, when they take to the streets seriously, like they're doing in the UK and in France, but you don't see the police clapping at the Britons and the French in the streets like that, because there it's a little different. The police state is slightly more afraid of the people. Here in America, the people are afraid of the police, and the police know it. They know it. But the difference is what we don't know is that we actually hold all the power. But there's too many of us that are bootlicking ass, want to be rubbing shoulders with the powerful and pledging their allegiance to the empire and to the state. I think police do a great job. It's just a few bad apples. Shut the fuck up, man. The entire phrase is a few bad apples ruin the bunch. There's no reforming the system of police, which leads me to my last and final story, probably the worst of the three. As bad as Tyre Nichols' beating death was, as bad as the assassination of unarmed protester Tortuguita in the Atlanta forest, what happened to 36-year-old Anthony Lowe in Huntington Beach, California, is outright horrific. Zaina, let's pop up the piece there, because on Monday, I believe, Anthony's family held a press conference. And let me give you guys the backstory about this. So in Southern California, I believe this did happen in Los Angeles County, and I think this is Huntington Beach, because I think the Los Angeles Sheriff's deputies, the Sheriff's Department is actually tasked with this investigation, of which people in the community are very troubled by that, because the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department also ain't shit when it comes to a policing agency. But the family of a double amputee who was fatally shot by Huntington Park, I'm sorry, I said Huntington Beach, Huntington Park police says that officers murdered her son. 36-year-old Anthony Lowe was seated in his wheelchair. He was approached by police, and police claim the initial claim, again, we have to be very discerning and critical as media consumers, and we have to be fully open-minded and not naive enough to accept the first, or actually second, third, fourth, and fifth words of the police as fact. Because when it comes to police misconduct, police brutality, police violence, and police murder, these police will lie. They will lie often. They will lie early. They will lie their asses off until it is proven otherwise, that they are a bunch of lying liars. Okay. So what the Huntington Park police initially said is that Anthony brandished a long knife, like a 12-inch long knife. He's a double amputee. They said initially that he tried to throw the knife at officers, and that's when they opened fire. The story has subsequently changed. Now, the Huntington Park police chief says Anthony Lowe did not try to throw a knife at officers. Oh, and why did they change that story? Because a bystander's video began circulating where it showed Anthony Lowe, again, a double amputee, trying to crawl away. He was out of his chair. He was trying to flee from these Huntington Park officers, and they shot and killed him. He was a double amputee. let's assume for a second that he even did have a knife, which I think video has pretty much disproven that. And I'm not going to show the video here, guys, because no, no. The video is available if you guys want to find it. It's circulating around social media. I ask that you don't share it because we don't need constant reminders of Black trauma, Black death, and Black people being murdered. This country has a long history of documenting exactly that. If you tell me that a person, Black or otherwise, was shot and killed by the police, I will believe you. I don't need to see the video and have that replaying in my mind's eye. That's not the kind of reinforcement that I need for that. But anywho, so since there is video evidence to the contrary showing Anthony Lowe out of his wheelchair on all fours, essentially trying to escape the police, many questions are now asked. Why did the police open fire on him? And there is no body cam video because Huntington Park police do not use body cam. So, oh man, well, you know, people who advocate for police reform, maybe they just got to get the body cameras on those Huntington Park police officers. Maybe that will be the silver bullet to make sure that no more police violence happens, because, you know, if the cameras are there, then the police can't lie about what they did. Well, they'll lie any fucking way, or they'll lose the video, or they will allow the video to be presented unedited, unencumbered, and still shrug their shoulders and say, now what? What you going to do? Fire us? Huh? You can fire us. We may not be prosecuted. And if we are prosecuted, chances are we won't be convicted. Because that's just how it goes for most police in America. And I think a lot of us got truly lulled to sleep in the aftermath of Derek Chauvin being convicted, right? People saw Chauvin go down and thought, oh, well, here we go. This is the accountability that many have been screaming for, that we need some police accountability. No, because Chauvin was the anomaly. Chauvin was the exception. The majority of police officers who murder in this country are never charged. If they are fired, there are no national rules or apparatuses in place so that a murderous cop can't get another job engaging in public safety in another location. The police officer, what was his name? The guy who killed Tamir Rice in Ohio. I think his name was Timothy Loman. I don't even think he properly got fired from that job. He left that job by another route. I don't even think he got fired from murdering 12-year-old Tamir Rice. But he was up for another policing job in a small Pennsylvania town. And shout out to the whites. I will shout out the whites when the whites do cool shit. Shout out to the whites in that small Pennsylvania town, because they came out and they said, no, the fuck you won't. We know who that is. We know what he did. Nope. He makes our community feel not safe because he gunned down a black teen, a black child, for no good reason, and we don't want him here. And they actually stopped his employment. I wish I could remember the name of the town. You guys are smart, Status Coup, as you guys probably know it. But that wasn't black folks that came out and did that. That was white folks. I said, go ahead, white folks, come on. And that's what I love. Listen, I love my people first and foremost. Make no mistake about that. My channel is a Black woman-centered channel. But listen, I'm here for the radical whites, because at the end of the day, if we're going to be a coalition, if we're going to be an alliance, you know what I'm saying? White folks in this country, they don't have all of the power, but they got a nice chunk of it. they got a good chunk. And I just want to see the radical whites, especially, and white folks as a whole, use your powers for good. If it's equality that you really want, if it's truly a free society for all, then you got to do it even when it's not popular. You got to do it even when your racist family and even maybe your racist peer group is giving you the stink eye. But like, why are you so concerned about, you know, these people and what these people are doing and what's happening to these people? You got it good. Why don't you just live your nice, white, comfortable life, which a lot of people do. But at the end, you can't live that way because it's hypocritical. You're living a lifestyle that is not available to all, right? And it's not because of lack of working hard and none of that bullshit. We all know America is not a meritocracy, guys. It's very much the luck of the birth order. It's very much the luck of the draw as to what zip code you were born in. It's very much the luck of what the educational and income status of your parents are when you arrive on this planet, okay? And if them zip codes are not the nice zip codes, and if mom and dad, if it's not even a mom and dad, but let's say it is mom and dad maybe didn't do so great in school, or for whatever fucking reason, the reasons could be so plentiful. Your outcome as a person is largely determined for you before you even take your first breath. And if that is what this country is about, then let's be honest about that. Let's not sit here and act as though there is equal opportunity for all. There isn't. The police do not equally kill Black and white and Hispanic at the same rates. And let me point this out real quick, and I'm gonna let y'all go. One of the right-wing talking points I've seen recently in the wake of Tyre Nichols' police murder has been these statistics that show that overall more white people are killed by the cops. Now, sometimes these statistics can come from varying sources, so I need to double check or whatever. Check the FBI, even though they're not reliable either. But I will say this. If you see conservatives or right-wing people making that argument to you, let them know it's not the flex that they fucking think it is. If they're like, oh, no, see, actually, white people get killed more than Black people, so we don't know why the Black people are so pissed off. No, the question is, why aren't the white people more pissed off? Why is it so much of white America completely content with cops killing the shit out of people, even if it's mostly white people? Let's even have that argument and say that it is mostly white people. Why are white people okay with that? Why are you, not y'all, but the other whites, why are the other whites just accepting that as a very standard basic fact? Why is it that the police have the authority to kill and to murder? And it can't be because of the mythology that they have a harder, more dangerous job than anybody. Bullshit. The person that's out here picking up your trash, your sanitation workers, probably have a more dangerous job than police, who sit around in their cars for the majority of their shift and do fuck all, but soak up overtime and taxpayers' money and the training that they're not applying while they're engaging with the public on the street. No, we should not live in the kind of police state in that way. Other countries comparable to our economy and our lifestyle do not live that way. Their police do not murder their citizens at the same rates in which the United States police apparatus murders its citizens. That should not be acceptable regardless of who's being killed. So ask the conservatives, why aren't they infuriated that the police are killing white people at all? You know what I'm saying? Well, killing people, yes. But in addition to killing Black folks and brown folks, but yes, killing white folks as well. How come the white people aren't in the streets when somebody white gets murdered by the police? And it's not justifiable. Anyway, let me calm down. Anyway, if you guys want to come, if you like what you heard here, and if you didn't, it don't matter. But come on over to Burn It Down with Kim Brown. That's my channel. I host my show every Tuesday and Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I usually talk about a lot of policing. I have a playlist on my channel called Cops Ain't Shit, and I will take the time to highlight a particular police department in a given area and give lots of stories about how that particular police department ate shit. I talk about the environment. I do not like Democrats. I do not like Joe Biden. I obviously do not like Republicans and conservatives, but I'm generally fed up with America. So if you like some more of that, come on over. We got a little something for you. Before I get out of here, let me thank one of our super chatters who did run us some bucks. Thank you so much for your super chat support. Who was this? Oh, Carpe Diem. Thank you, Carpe Diem. Thank you so much for your super chat support there. I appreciate it. And whom else was I going to say? Oh, thank you so much to Zeta. Guys, by the way, on this channel, on Status Coup, I had the opportunity to speak with the ever amazing Olayemi Olarine. We spoke this past Saturday, not only about cop violence, but in terms, what are the solutions to cop violence? How can we organize? How can we better give political education to our communities? For example, how can we encourage people to not call the police on those who are experiencing a mental health crisis? We've seen too many times police show up, escalate the situation, and end up murdering the person that was experiencing crisis. So how is that protecting and serving? How is that being a good agent of public safety? It isn't. Okay. So we have to start by informing our people first and foremostly that the cops do not keep us safe. So anyway, check out that interview. It's on Status Coup. Thank you so much to Zaina for arranging that. Thank you so much to Jordan. Shout out to Colin. And Zaina, hey, you gonna come in?
Yeah. Do you, there's a couple of things. I know Jordan wanted to mention an article that he just now finished up for Substack. And then I do have some of the chats here starred that some other super chats here, if we wanted to throw those up on the screen really quick.
Sure.
Okay. I think Jordan just finished up the article, just to talk about that really quick. Was about, let's see here. Hold on. I'm still, I don't have my two monitors right now. So that's why I'm kind of running around. But we have been trying the last week, and I made a lot of phone calls. We've both been trying to reach Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff's offices, and we have not been able to reach them. And there has been nothing but silence from the two of them on what is going on in Atlanta with Cop City. And as both of you guys know, they pose themselves as these glorious leftists coming in, going to save Georgia, right? But we're not hearing anything from them on police violence right now. So Jordan did a little write-up that is on our
Substack
right now.
Substack, yes.
Thank you.
Hey, throw in where's y'all boy? I know Status Coup. We got some Run the Jewels fans in here. Where's y'all boy Killer Mike? Where's Killer Mike at? Yes, I know Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are the elected senators, but Killer Mike has had a lot to say. And definitely raised himself up as a leader and a voice of the Black community, especially in Atlanta. I have not heard shit from Killer Mike pertaining to Cop City. Where's Killer Mike? Ask him what he thinks about the situation. I'm sorry, Zaina. I had to throw that in there to be a little petty, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, baby.
It's a good point. We haven't heard from Killer Mike, and we haven't heard from the whole there's several movie studios down there that are being led by Black leaders. I mean, they're producing every single Madea film down there now.
Right. I thought it was Wakanda forever. What's going on, Tyler Perry? You don't have nothing to say about Cop City? What you got to say
Where's
about Cop
Tyler
City?
Perry at? That's what I've been asking. Where's he showing up to this? Speaking out and standing in solidarity. So there is some people that we haven't heard a whole heck of a lot from that could be down there pulling some bullhorns out too.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's what I want all of us to understand, that and this, Zaina, but all skin folk are not your kinfolk, right? These people are not in class allegiance with us. Killer Mike is not in class allegiance with those who are going to be the targets of Cop City, who are going to be the victims of Cop City. No, he wants to be kicking it with the Atlanta mayor and probably performing at the Atlanta Police Foundation. I bet you Killer Mike's going to be performing at the opening of Cop City. Okay, just to show y'all where Killer Mike come from. But I digress. And so what's the name of the article on Substack again, Zaina? I'm sorry, baby.
Let's see here. And then we do have a few super chats. Did you want me to go through those, or you want to hang out with us? Okay,
well,
cool.
I'll hang out, but you read them.
Oh, okay. Let's see. It's deafening silence from Georgia Democrats Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff after police kill Cop City protester. Charge others with domestic terrorism. So it's sort of encompassing too the civil liberties of the people that have been arrested and labeled as domestic terrorism for what? They're saying throwing some rocks, associating with, certain people. That's all they got on that for us. So that's Jordan goes and breaks it down, and I think goes into some of what we had covered, and what Tina, oh my gosh. there was shots fired. It sounded like shots fired in the street. And I watch her tell Colin, follow me. And she goes running toward him the other day when she was down there covering the protest. So she was down there all weekend. And then John Farina was at the Tyre Nichols protest. So I got to get down there. I got to hear from the people directly about what's going on in their own backyards, because their narratives they gave us in both of those instances were very different than the mainstream media narrative we're getting.
Without a doubt. And you guys are so cute. And Tina's so cute. She said, they're shooting. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go follow the shooting. No, you go away from the shooting, Tina. You run away from the bullets. You do not run towards the bullets.
I was like, yeah, I mean, I've protested for years. So my response is run in the opposite direction, you know, because I've been organizing 20 years. That's when you start dispersing, right? Like,
yeah. Yes. Is anybody else running some money?
Yeah. Well, I had just a couple of them, and then some super chats as well. But there was a couple people weighing in. 400. Ray J says 400,000 people in the streets of France is being reported. Wow. Yeah, that's wild. Fly Chopper Fly, we love you. Let's see, media blackout because don't want USA to get any ideas.
Yes, exactly. And that's something, I mean, but let that sink in, everybody. The media is not interested in informing you. Again, these are our allies, right? These are our NATO partners. They don't want to tell you what the working people in our allied nations are doing to demand better conditions for themselves, because they don't want to wake up the sleeping giant that is in America right now.
That's right. And, you know, Iran has been on almost a 200-day universal strike in Iran, and there's not much talk of it other than, you know, politicizing it, whether or not America should get involved or not. That's all the framing. But the workers element of it isn't discussed at all with any of the mainstream media, yet they're having a massive labor movement there right now. And I will say that France and England has gotten more coverage than that brown country has. I'll tell you that much. Even though they still even haven't got that much.
Yeah, it's weird. Like coverage on mainstream outlets about Iran, about Cuba, about Venezuela, about China, about Russia. I'm always like, I'm dubious. I'm always skeptical because I don't expect the truth to be told in mainstream media about what's happening in those countries. You know what I mean?
Nope, never. Henry says the proletariat, I suspect most regular folks have no idea what that word means. I think that I think there's some truth to that. Pablo says Canada is trying to end right to strike too. And there was a couple of people they also said Ontario was going to fine janitors $4,000 a day for striking. And teacher assistants and education workers did a massive strike in Ontario, shut down the government, and was trying to take a charter flight to strike. All unions stood in solidarity. So
when was this? I missed all of that, Canada. When did that happen?
Me too. It was similar legislation coming down to what we have in our Supreme Court that's up in the next couple of weeks that will actually hold workers liable for striking, where the companies can sue the workers for striking. Canada tried to do the same thing not very long ago. So they're trying to take more money out of our pockets when they're already taking out a lot.
And deny you more rights, right? I mean, just think about that. You potentially, if these people have their way, I mean, they would deny people the right to to withhold their labor. Like you can't even not work. if you said, I do not want to work. They said, no, we're actually going to fine you and sue you if you decide to do that. Slavery come back, except it's come back for everybody this time. Okay.
And for their losses. That's the whole damn point of striking. So that you put economic burdens on them. Like that's the point. So crazy. Fly Chopper Fly again. Sorry, but old folk only care what it is there.
Hey, I was thinking that too, looking at the middle-aged protesters in France who were so angry. They were in the streets. I will be in the streets. I was like, okay, my guy, it's cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm with the old folks being rowdy because they were rowdy when they were young, I hope. But I hope that they have that same energy when people are killed by the police in the streets, and not just when the age of claiming your pension is being raised. But it's okay. Listen, whatever gets people out in the streets, I'm okay with it by and large. Like, it's okay to go out in the streets for your own self-serving interest. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? But so that's okay with me.
See, we've just got 4 more to go, just to give you a little bit of a countdown. We're almost there. Das Bos Fleisch. We love you. Thanks for the 2 pounds. Burn it down, but carbon neutral.
We only burning LED. We're burning it down LED style here. Yes, but yes, carbon neutral with the burning down. Thank you so much for that suggestion. And your super chat.
Yeah, for sure. That's hilarious. Make sure you have your LED candles in the background.
Yeah, and that is an LED, by the way. Look at
the one with the flames. I love that one.
I love that. Shout out to Dawn Afraid Not. One of my Fire Fam members gave me that for Christmas a couple Christmases ago.
That's so perfect.
I thought it was great.
Has anyone in Cop City reached out to Warnock's congregation at Ebenezer Baptist? I don't know.
Interesting. I would say yes. So let me, I do not know this for a fact. Let me preface it with that. But, Raphael Warnock, prior to becoming a senator, from what my comrades in Atlanta tell us, he used to be, a little about it. With the case of Troy Davis, who was murdered by the state in Georgia, executed by the state for a crime that he did not commit. Raphael Warnock was part of the coalition of organizers that were trying to save Troy Davis's life. So from what I understand, he has had flashes of being aligned with some radical stuff. I would hope and I would imagine that activists did reach out to his office and his congregation. I mean, this Cop City is going to impact Black people in Atlanta. So there's no way that Senator Warnock and the members of Ebenezer Baptist are not aware of this issue. But sometimes, again, along these class divisions, sometimes, the bourgeoisie doesn't look at themselves as being the targets of police violence or anyone that they care about, because the police, patrol the poor areas. I'm Black, I'm bougie, I live in Buckhead. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I care what the police do down in Southwest Atlanta? I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but I'm saying in some people's minds, in the ways in which we see the class divisions, even amongst Black people in cities like Atlanta. Yeah, it could be that. But to answer the short answer to the question, I do not know for certain whether or not Ebenezer and Senator Warnock themselves are involved with the Stop Cop City movement, but I don't think that they are.
No, Kamau had said that they had reached out to all kinds of churches in the area. Some had signed. There were some, I don't know about that particular congregation, but some churches had been involved with the protesting at the city council. I kind of think if the Warnocks were involved, I don't know. I would imagine likely not, but who knows?
I mean, if you look at his commercials when he was running against Herschel Walker, like Raphael Warnock and Stacey Abrams ran a bunch of pro-cop commercials. So that just a reminder, just because they are Black does not mean that they are representing or advocating for the interests that best serve most Black folks. So.
Yeah, I mean, they were running to placate the racism that's prevalent in the rest of the state, which is it's gross, man.
So sad.
Let's see. Ron Anderson was reminding folks in the chat that being pro-Black does not mean it is not anti-white.
That's right. Did people need to be reminded of that?
I don't know, but I think it's a good point.
That's an excellent point. No, absolutely. Pro-black does not mean anti-white. That's that J. Edgar Hoover fucking propaganda that they try to run on the whites. Like, hey, look at these pro-black, these militant blacks. That means they're coming to your house, to coming to kill you. No, not at all. We want the whites to be out in the streets with us. We would love that. Because if America means what we are indoctrinated to believe that it means, I can tell you it does not represent that right now. So, black people who are pro-black are just that, pro-black. We are not anti-white. We are anti-white supremacy. I make no bones about that. I am absolutely anti-white supremacy all day. But I hope that whites would also be anti-white supremacy. So there is that.
You could be pro-black, anti-racist, and be white. Need more of that.
Yeah. We've got some of those. We've actually got some of those. So that's yes, yeah.
Fly Chopper Fly, and this is the last one. He says, "Love you too, Kim." Signed a white fan solidarity.
Hey, that's right, white fan solidarity, and that's how you show your solidarity, by running them dollars. So thank you so much for your super chat support, because you got to support channels like Status Coup. You got to support Burn It Down with Kim Brown, Black Power Media, because y'all, the mainstream media is doing its job to make sure that workers stay disunited, stay disorganized, stay disenfranchised. They're trying to do the same for Black folks, as we see what they're doing to our migrant and immigrant neighbors. We are about to be in a full-fledged war here. A war of what kind? I'm not exactly sure. But if the police actions that we have seen continue to escalate and grow over year after year after year, expect something worse to maybe come on a mass scale, because they're ready for it. As much as America is militarized around the world, they are absolutely militarized domestically, and they are ready to deploy against us, against its citizens, against our neighbors, against us. So we got to be on the right side of things. So anyway, Zaina, thank you so much for reading off all the super chats. It probably would have taken me about 45 minutes, or I just would have signed off and been like, thanks everybody for the super chats. that would have been my thank you for the super chats. But we appreciate you viewing Status Coup News. Please tune in to Status Coup tomorrow all day and every day after that to get the latest updates on the stories that concern working people, that concern marginalized people, and that concern those that are concerned about those groups, even if you don't find yourself in those groups. The time for solidarity is now. It's not just something that you say. Solidarity is something that you do. So try to keep that in mind. So thank you so much to Jordan. Thank you to Colin. Thank you to Zaina. And please go subscribe to my channel, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. We certainly appreciate it. Guys, have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next Wednesday. See y'all later. Bye-bye. Deuces.